When I first heard Cy Rogers speaking at a church, I felt bad for him because just as he was halfway through his first few sentences, several groups of churchgoers got up, as if offended, and walked out of the church. They unfairly judged this man by his speech, thinking he was going to preach pro-homosexual marriage agenda and lifestyle in the church. He was not. Cy Rogers was a man who was about to share his testimony and give a mind-blowing speech about how he left the gay lifestyle by choice and later married, and he even had children. The road was not easy for him, and he wanted to let other men struggling with the same issues know that homosexual urges are no different than the sexual urges of heterosexual men and women. Humans were designed as sexual creatures, and thus most often struggle with sexual desires, whether they're gay or straight. It doesn't mean that sexual desires and urges in of themselves are a sin. What makes something a sin is the intention behind what you're going to do with those sexual urges and desires. Are you going to act on them? Are you going to make the choice to have self-control and reserve those sexual desires and set them aside to wait for the right person at the right time? Or are you going to go for instant gratification and act on them with someone whom you know is not the person that you're meant to be with? So some religious people lie and they pretend that it's a sin to have a sexual drive and have sexual urges, and they'll pretend they don't have these. Oh no, I don't give myself any pleasure when I'm alone in my bedroom, and I don't do that. No. So what I really liked about Cy Rogers was the way that he addressed the hypocritical way that a lot of Christians like to treat human sexuality. And believe it or not, but it was this ex-gay, effeminate man, Cy Rogers, this pastor, who was the final influential straw in convincing me in my late teen years to go ahead and make the commitment to reserve sex for marriage. Aside from other people like Rebecca St. James, Jackie Velasquez, and other books that I had already read on it, and simply, it really did match with my own sense of morality and my monogamous nature. So it felt like the right thing to do. So at the age of 19, I went ahead and formally made a commitment to reserve sex for marriage. And I later on did a little ceremony on Mother's Day. It was in front of my mom and my brother. I signed the certificate. I had my brother put a purity ring on my finger and had him hold me accountable to my decision. By the way, my little brother, he is a gay man, and I don't hold anything against him. I've always treated him the same. In fact, when he was struggling, when he was about 16, 17 years old, he came to me with what he was struggling with about his homosexuality, and I tried to help him and give him the best advice that I could. And I know there was a lot of people who would point the finger at him at the Christian school that he was attending. And I explained to him that there's all different times of sin, that everybody has committed sin, that he knows very well that there's not one perfect person in this world, not him, not I, not anybody, and that we could strive to be perfect, and we should, but I told him not to feel bad about that. I told him, hey, none of our parents were saints, and you have plenty of people around you, friends who are involved in promiscuity. They can't point the finger at you. They might make fun of you for not being completely straight, but they can't look at you and say that you're evil and they're sinless, because promiscuous men who go around whoremongering are, they're just as bad. So, women who go out and slut around, how are they worse than a homosexual guy who sleeps and has sex with one guy? How is that any worse sin? And I know that there exist men who really consider themselves spiritual. They consider themselves Christians or maybe of some other religion, but they feel that they really love God and that they're trying to live life in a decent manner, but they struggle with sexual desires. And those same sexual desires are the same ones that any other heterosexual men struggle with as well. And women too. I'm not gonna lie and say I don't have heterosexual struggles. I mean, do you think that I want to remain celibate? Nonetheless, when my husband died, I decided to go back to the celibate lifestyle because that's what I believe in. Now, I want you to understand that struggling does not mean that you have to give in to the temptation of having sex with someone that is either not going to be good for you, or that it's totally the wrong time and that it's not going to work out. You don't have to give in to that temptation. So what I mean by struggling is find a different way to deal with that struggle other than giving in to actually taking the action of having sex with that person. You could do something else. You could admit that you're feeling that desire. You could dwell on the thought for a little bit, and then you could choose not to go out that person that evening, and you could choose not to see them again until you get your act together and you know that it's no longer going to be any temptation, right? That's a choice too that you could make, and those are the choices that I make. And if I have to indulge in solo pleasuring myself to avoid doing something else with an actual person that's not me, then that's what I'm gonna do. And I don't have a problem with that. But don't give in to having sex with that person. And you know what? I'm gonna share this song with you, which is from Cy Rogers, because aside from being a pastor, this guy actually made some pretty interesting music. I remember that I bought his album for my brother, and I heard the album and I liked it so much that I later on bought one for myself. So this is a song from Cy Rogers. By the way, I hate that word in the title of the song. But it's an interesting song. He's got good music, and I'll play a couple of them here in this video. And I'll share some clips of what he has said in the past. Very powerful stuff that he says.
I want to tell you something. Consider this. Sometimes I'm feeling horny. The situation's thorny. I need to lift my face and experience some grace. Some grace. Some grace. Some grace.
am the simple one he can redeem. I am the weakest one but can depend. I am the fallen one, he is the friend. Can I get a witness? Testify for him. Can I get a witness? To say amen. Can I get a witness? Testify for him. Can I get a witness? To say amen. As I'm feeling horny, and the situation's thorny, cause I really love God. Can't deny that I get horny, and my thoughts are sometimes corny. I know that I should pray, but it doesn't go away. So often when the jerks make me hurt, and the dirt seems better than the way to obey every day. Can't deny that I get mad, and my attitude is bad. Need to lift my dirty face and experience some grace. We are the dirty ones, he makes us clean. We are the simple ones he can redeem. We are the weakest ones but can depend. We are the fallen ones. Can I get a witness? Testify for him. Can I get a witness? To say amen. Can I get a witness? Testify for him. Can I get a witness? When I think of people who struggle with their dirty thoughts and everything, I understand the struggle, but for me it's kind of like, I'm a father. I remember my daughter in her poopy nappy phase. Babies don't even know they've pooped in their nappies when they're about 5 months old. They'd play with it if they could get to it. And that's because they don't recognize it as defilement. Research of children has shown that, like the 1-year-old baby, they've done this experiment where they take a really gross, ugly bug. It's plastic, but it looks really real and gross. And they put it in a glass of milk. The 1-year-old looks at that and drinks the milk. Then they give it to the 2-year-old. The 2-year-old looks at that and takes the bug out of the milk and drinks the milk. Then they give it to a 3-year-old, and the 3-year-old looks at it and by virtue of cognitive development says, ooh, the milk itself is defiled by virtue of the insect. It takes time to learn what defiles. And so then babies, they turn a year old and they make big poopy nappy loads, but now they're mobile and they run away from mommy and daddy, and mom and dad have to chase the kid down and hose the kid down and repackage the kid 2,942 times a year on average, 8 changes a day, I counted. Then the baby turns 2, and the baby still makes poopy nappies, but now the baby has learned, I'm not bad, mom and dad are not mad, I'm just human, and mom and dad will help me if I submit my need to them. And then mom and dad spend another earnest year, as the child approaches 3, it's hit or miss for a while, teaching baby that while defilement comes with the human condition, it's how you manage it that matters. And I realized when I first came to the Lord, I didn't even recognize things that defiled me. But as I began to clue in, as the Spirit began to illumine, I felt convicted and afraid, thinking that God was mad and I was bad. I ran in full flight. He had to chase me down and earn back my trust, proving to me that he's already taken all of this into consideration like any parent would. And then, as I began to grow in my knowledge of him, I learned that just because I've made a mess doesn't mean I can't approach the one who makes me clean. In fact, that's the only recourse I've got. And then he began to teach me the better way, that as it bubbles up, don't let it slime you and everybody else. This is how you deal. You admit it, you submit it to the agent of cleansing that's greater than the power of defilement. Are you with me? Run to God, not from him. Here's what his word says. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just and will forgive us and purify us from all our unrighteousness, says 1 John. We are told in Hebrews chapter 10, let us draw near to God with a sincere heart in full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled to cleanse us and our bodies washed with pure water. For we have a high priest who is able to sympathize with our weaknesses. We have one who's been tempted in every way, just as we are, and yet he is without sin. Let us then approach his throne of grace with confidence that we will receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. Run to the one who makes you clean. One of my most important lessons, it works for me still. In a dirty world out there, And in here, God shows me how to trump that. A secure person is a person who's not driven to prove anything. They are a person at rest. When your home is locked up and you feel bundled and secure on a stormy night, you rest well, don't you? The idea of security means a heart at peace, a heart not driven. The insecure person is driven, generally to prove that they are valued. They have not yet had the question answered, am I loved and valued as I am? Many people accomplish many things. As the book of Ecclesiastes dryly, wryly, insightfully says, oh, much is achieved through one man's envy of another. Even in the world of the Christian ministry business, how many kingdoms have been built on the foundation of, I got to prove to other people that I am somebody, because I never ever felt that I was before. How many people in the business world achieve running that race of achievement, but they lose out on the real race that matters? In the way that they relate to other people, because they must make a name for themselves to find that they are valued. The man who conquers 5 girls a week, oh, he's a real stud muffin, all right, but real men don't have to use or abuse women to prove that they're men. But insecure men have something to prove. The woman who is flirtatious, and even if she doesn't go to bed with them but simply flirts with them, I'd say there's probably an element of insecurity there, because she's trying to prove something, that she's desirable, but not just to them, that she may know, see, people value me. The man who is secure knows that maybe other men will achieve more, and other men may be smarter and more talented, or other men may be better looking and may kick a football further, but he's still a man, and he's got his destiny in God, created on purpose for a purpose, and he doesn't have to envy, nor must he compete, nor must he compare, because he knows he's got his own niche carved out by God that nobody else can take away from him. He is thus at rest, and he need not envy, covet, compete by comparing to prove something to himself and others. Do I make sense? So as we...
Do you see that boy? The one left all alone. The one the other boys won't own. Do you see that boy on the outside looking in? The one they never chooses him. Do you see that boy? Do you see that boy? That boy. He never plays the way the other boys do. Perhaps he tried but couldn't seem to pass the test like the rest. He never liked the games and toys, but in his heart he wanted to be just one of the boys. One of the boys. He only wanted to be one of the boys.
Do you see that boy? He doesn't understand why he is to be a man. Do you see that boy? The one who always seeks. He knows the door but lacks the key. Do you see that boy? Do you see that boy? That boy. They called him names and made him cry. He was strange but didn't know why. Such a shame.
You know, I did not choose to develop my feelings, they developed for reasons. And while I cannot speak for every person with same-sex attraction, I can tell you a little of my journey to help you understand about the character of God. I am not in a ministry trying to change people. I don't have the power, and it misses the point. I am in a posture of inviting people into journey with God. And when people say, well, what about the way I live? What do you think? My opinion doesn't matter worth a hill of beans, but there is an opinion that does. Seek that opinion. But I can tell you that I put these images up to make a point. Who you listen to matters, because I'd spent 20 years surrounded by people in pop culture, people in my peer group, people who told me like bullies who I was in their eyes. And this is the fruit of electing to listen to God's opinion above everybody else's, and He's the one who led me forward out of the ditch of what other people told me I was and was not. So it really matters who you listen to. Oh yes, sex is a powerful master. If you've been bound by pornography, if you've been wounded through sexual abuse, if you struggle with desires from loneliness to lust, you know how powerful the master can be. But I can also tell you this, it really matters who you listen to and bow down and serve, because God is a more powerful master.
My soul feels the danger.